So now we're going to look at some layers. And layers is something, it's a fundamental in AutoCAD really. Some people, well, you should use them. It makes your life easier. It would also, if you was in the workplace, they would expect you to use them. Some people don't, especially self-taught people can maybe not use them because they're not used to them. AutoCAD, like a lot of CAD software, it's one of those things you could start using it. You could find your way through it. You could learn to draw rectangles and things, and it's quite self-explanatory. And maybe someone who's self-taught could end up being able to draw the object they wanted to draw, and they think, well, I know how to use AutoCAD. But there's all sorts of things in there, such as that come under CAD standards and just professional ways of using the software. But if you're not shown, you wouldn't even know you were supposed to do. And that's one of the ways in the workplace you can tell someone who's kind of just picked up the software and learned to use it against someone who's been properly trained, is the way that you do certain things. And layers is definitely one of those things. So it's important to know about layers and also how they can make your life so much easier, especially when you start getting a more complex drawing. So we'll look at the basic principles in this chapter, and in other chapters in the actual courses you'll put them into practice. But we'll go over now looking at just the principles behind the layer system. And to do that, we're going to use an example drawing in the resources, which is building 01. Okay, and if you open that, now if you open it up and it looks like this, okay, you're in the layout tab. If you don't understand what that is, don't worry, you just haven't got that far in your course yet. But you want to click, if it does look like this with a white background, you want to click down here where it says model. Okay. And you'll be covering all that later in whatever course you're doing if you haven't already. But for now, just click on model so you'll get a black background and it will look similar to my screen. And let's look at what layers are all about. So let's imagine we've got this building layout here, and we've got our external walls, we've got our windows. So this is a building layout. It's fairly simple, but a large building will just be the same on a larger scale. So it's a good example. And we're looking down on the building plan. If you're not used to looking at building plans, we're looking down on kind of a cut through the building. Okay, so these grey thick walls here, these are the external walls of the building, and the green objects are the windows. So it's kind of cut through. If you imagine cutting a line halfway up the wall of a building, and it goes through the windows and the doors. This is what we're looking at here. These thinner lines are the internal walls, so they would be like a partition wall. The blue objects are doors. So these are showing a door, and it's showing how it swings. If you just showed a door here as a line in the wall, it wouldn't tell you how that door opens. So you need to know which way it would actually swing, which would tell the person building the layout how to hang the door. It's hanging here and it's swinging this way. Okay, so it's important to know that. Again, here you've got a double door. And that's kind of a standard. You might have more detail of the frame on some blocks, but for a simple layout like this, that's a standard block or standard way of creating a door. So these orange objects, these are strip lights on the ceiling. So this would probably be a lighting layout, for instance, for the electrical contractor. And that's again a simple layout, but it's all created properly using the correct layers. So what are layers? Well, a layer is a way of separating objects into similar groups, if you like. So the layers can be found. We have a layer tab here, which will give you commands to work with layers. But if you want to actually see the layers, they're found under the properties box here. And if we click on layer properties, which is this button, it will come up with this properties manager here, which allows you to manage all the layers in a drawing. And now we'll look at this and it will give you an idea of what layers actually do. So if we look at our list here, and I'm just going to move it so you can see the drawing as well. Let's move it there. We have layer 0. Layer 0 is standard. When you create a drawing, if I was to go and create a new drawing just by clicking that there, that tab, we get a new drawing, and our layer manager now, in this drawing, it says layer 0. Okay? So when you start a new drawing, it has one layer, which is layer 0. And if you want to create any more, you need to add them. And we'll look at that in a minute. But back to this one, we have other layers here, apart from layer 0. We've got def points. Def points is kind of an automatically generated layer. Just ignore that for now. Don't worry about it. But these layers are layers that have been created in this drawing, and we've got layers for each item or each type of item. So we've got doors, which is obviously the doors. We've got the external walls, which is these thick walls. We've got internal walls. We've got lighting. Okay. Title block. Don't worry about that. Windows. Windows is these green objects. Okay. And then we've got one called hatch. Hatch is basically the hatch inside the walls. Sometimes you might want to show that, sometimes you might not. So why do we separate them out? Well, the hatch is a good example. Let's say for this drawing, the electrical contractor says, actually, I don't want to show the hatched in this building. Okay, maybe the architect does, the electrical contractor doesn't, for whatever reason. Because this is on hatch layer, what we can do, we can select this light bulb here, okay? This light bulb is a visibility icon. It's kind of standard again around Autodesk's range of software. If the light bulb is on, it's visible. If the light bulb is off, which we can do by clicking it, it's not visible. And you'll see our hatch has all disappeared now. But it's not deleted. All we've done is turn all the hatches off, okay? By clicking that. And maybe this drawing goes to someone else, not the electrical contractor, and they don't want the light showing. We can go to lighting and we can switch that off. Okay, and we could switch doors off, we could switch the internal walls off, we could take the windows out. Okay, so now we've just got our walls with the openings for the windows, but not the actual windows. That's our external wall. And if we wanted to bring any back in, we can just turn them on and off again. So that is really the principle of layers. It enables you to turn items off and make them not visible and do other change properties which will only affect that group. So let's say the internal walls. So we turn the hatch off. Okay, the internal walls, I want all those to be dashed lines. So you could select the line and you could go dashed. Okay. Change the scale there. So that's a dashed line. And you could select all the lines for the internal walls and you could do the same. But what you'll notice is that most objects, by default, when they're created, the line type style is by layer. Okay. And that goes for, if I click it, the color. Well, that can be set to by layer. Okay. The line thickness can be set to by layer. So what does by layer mean? Well, it means those properties, whether it be color, line type, whatever, have been set in the layer manager.